Hey there, it's Golly. Now I know it's been a month, but don't worry, I've got stuff to show for it. Before I do that though, I'd like to talk about spook factor. Now in a horror game, there are plenty of ways that you can spook the player. I plan on using quite a bit of those. However, one in particular that's inspired me is how technological limitations enhance spook factor in horror games. For example, I can talk about the original Silent Hill. The fog was, one of the most memorable elements of the game. Originally, it was just a trick used by the developers. See, the PlayStation 1 had limited processing power. By using the fog, they managed to both create an atmosphere that was really tense, but also push the limits of the technology that was available at the time. Another example is Faith, which is a more recent game, and this time the technological limitations are self-imposed by the developer. This game uses very pixelized art and somehow manages to create really creepy imagery with it. A more relevant part of Faith is how it does voices, and see, the way it does do voices creates an incredibly unsettling feel. It uses speech synthesis, so of course you know that as text-to-speech. The voice that it uses is called Sam, that first appeared on the Commodore 64. You'd probably recognize the sound of it if I played some clips for you. Here, have a listen.
Hello, my name is Sam.
This approach to voices creates a really unnatural feel, and it's something that I need for my game. Now, of course, I could have just gotten an asset that would make my life easier and do the work for me, but obviously I seem to like to hurt myself. I spent a lot of time looking around the internet, first trying to learn how to make a text-to-speech algorithm, then realizing, oh lord, that's a very stupid and innocent thing for me to think I have the ability to do, and finally I landed on eSpeak. eSpeak has a free-to-use speech synthesis library, and eSpeak itself has quite a bit of a history. It started off as a program just called Speak, and then it was taken again in 2007 by another group, and they named it eSpeak this time, and it didn't end there. In 2015, there was another bunch of people who wanted to retake the code of eSpeak and make it into something new, and they called this one eSpeak NG, and that's the current version I'm working with. The catch is that eSpeak NG is written in C, and I have no experience in C, so after more digging around, I managed to find a C# wrapper that was made for eSpeak NG, and then I also found a Unity implementation that someone else had worked on that uses that C# wrapper, but also uses the DLL manipulator, which is another whole can of worms. After messing around with it in another project to understand how all of its stuff worked, I decided to come up with my version that I would then implement into my current project. This version completely got rid of the DLL manipulator, and it needed a horrible mixing of the wrapper and the implementation code. Yeah, ultimately the result is a mess. But the important part is that it works, and that is, in the end, all that matters. I've given myself a deadline, and so I'm gonna have to suffer through having very horribly messy code so that I can actually finish my game in time. But hey, it's no fun me just talking about it. Have a listen to some examples I've made with all of the code that I managed to get working.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, a peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Monstransport lead eklisus gaisas pilmen ir piln sanvusiem.
Now, this is probably confusing, as it's unclear how it relates to my game, but trust me, it's a very important part. Once all of the other core elements of my game are working, I'll be able to come back to it and mess with the voices some more to find out different effects I can create. This is not all I've been doing this past month. Another thing I've been working on is core system programming for the game's story. I've come up with a system I've called the player progress tracking system. Not a very creative name, but ultimately it's a very important part of how I want my experience to work. This was very complicated for me to think up, so I have no doubt that this is probably very confusing, but unfortunately that's what happens with back-end stuff. Lastly, I've been messing around with more artistic stuff. I'm finally getting more accustomed to Substance Painter and Pixelator. See, Substance Painter is the software that I've been trying to learn to make better textures for my objects, and Pixelator is an add-on for the purpose of making low-fidelity art. What I'm working on currently is going to be another very important part of the game that I can't reveal just yet, and that's why I'm really taking all the time in the world to learn how to do this properly so I can get a pretty result like the ones that you're seeing now. I'm sorry for being such a tease. I can promise you that even though I don't have a lot to show for it, I have been working very hard. And with only 2 months left, and with the core systems down, I'm most likely going to be able to have more interesting things to show in the upcoming videos, so don't worry about it. Other than that, I really gotta give a thanks for the response on the latest video, and I'm really glad people are taking interest in my work. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Till then, take care. Bye bye.